Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner here with MFSN's Waiver Wire Show Week 3. And click subscribe, hit like, ring the bell for notifications if you haven't seen us before. We are ready to bring you the best pickups for Week 3 of basketball. Okay, here I am with my co-hosts, Fantasy Pros expert Andrew Seifter and Ross the Boss.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk fantasy sports with you, cowboy.
We are ready to do it, Ross. Let's get right to it, guys. First of all, let's establish this. We've got our 60% rule. So this is mostly with Yahoo leagues. You could take it from any league, basically, but players that are owned above 60%, we're generally not going to talk about here. We're looking for players that you can pick up that are widely available in your leagues. We also divide it up into must-haves, solid pickups, and deeper league pickups. We always start with the must-haves. Let's get right to it. Ross, you got us started. Who's one of your must-haves in Week 3?
So, as you know, Week 3 is a big week for fantasy basketball. Huge week. You kind of know your weaknesses. If you need rebounds, you need steals, or you need better free throw percentages, that's where you go right now into the waiver wire and you get that player you need that's going to help your team. If you have a player that's getting rebounds and getting points and you're good with that stat, maybe it's time to waive somebody, pick up somebody that can help you in other stats. And that's why my first player I want to pick up, because he started yesterday for the first time, is Boogie Cousins. He had 14 rebounds. He had a couple blocks. He looked good. He looked like he's in shape. He's going to start more games for Houston. If he's available in your league, I think it's a great pickup right now. So Boogie Cousins is my number one pickup of the week.
Andrew, what do you say about that? Where's Cousins on your radar?
It's a tough call with Cousins because, I mean, we all know how good he can be, both in real basketball and in fantasy basketball. The question is, how many minutes is he going to get? I mean, Christian Wood was out for that game, and I think that's really the big factor there in terms of the minutes that he's going to get. So I have him more as like a mid-tier kind of a pickup personally.
Oh, Ross, you're going to be really upset about this, but so do I. He's not in my must-haves list. I understand why he would be. He's got the talent to be there. But the thing about Cousins is first of all, he's become injury prone. Secondly, he's a bit of a head case, but he's a huge talent. So I could understand putting him way up on the list of who you're going to get, but I don't have him at the top of my list. I'm going to tell you who is. Andrew, you're going to love this. He's a player that you already own. And actually, look, when I made this list, he was at 60%. He's already climbed to 62%. By the end of the show, he's going to be even higher. It's Darius Bazley. This guy is a beast. And the thing is, this happens sometimes. You have a certain idea about a player, and then you look at the stats and you realize something. So Darius Bazley, for some reason, I had him confused with somebody else in terms of free throw percentage. When I looked at his free throw percentage, I was like, what? This guy does all this. He blocks shots. He gets rebounds. He's getting huge minutes. And he's shooting over 90% from the free throw line. I couldn't believe it. So this is a guy that can get it done across the board. Now, Andrew, I know you're going to agree with me just across the board in general, but what do you have to say about Bazley? Is he among your must-haves, or did you not have him because his percentage was too high?
I did put him on just because I know we had him featured in our little graphic there. So I figured I should give him a mention. You actually will be surprised to know, Dan, he is already now at 63%. So by the end of the show, he'll probably be at 64%. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy that I was very high on coming into the season. He started off slow, so it kind of tested my resolve a little bit there, but I never considered dropping him. I was telling people to pick him up, because even people who drafted him may have let him go too quick there. But I mean, exactly what you said, across the board production with that free throw shooting, with the blocks, his rebound numbers are huge too. And he's scoring like 20 points a night lately. So he's really definitely my top ad if he's available. For me this week, there's not a ton of must-have players on my list. But the other guy that we've talked about before that I really think should be rostered at this point is Tyrese Halliburton, who just continues to play great. He's a top 45 player in 9 category formats so far. And De'Aaron Fox actually left the game the other night with a hamstring injury. I don't know if he's going to miss time or not, but honestly, it doesn't even matter. Even if he doesn't miss any time, Halliburton's minutes are trending up. They're going to keep trending up. He's a rookie that's producing like that. So he's, to me, the definite top must add other than Basley.
I love Tyrese.
Right, hold that thought.
I love it's a great one. Tyrese is a great pickup. I agree with you in Sacramento. And Sacramento is a team that people don't take seriously. I feel like, they have a lot of great players on that team that are playing really well fantasy wise. There's Hield. There's a whole bunch of other players that are just playing unbelievably over their head right now. And I think that's a great pickup. I wish I could get him on my league.
I mean, there were times where, remember, Andrew, we used to call Sacramento excremento. It was not kind, but they were playing like that. This was before Chris Webber was even there.
It was never about the city, just the team.
Exactly. We have nothing against the city. But listen, we've got some comments coming from the audience from one of our co-hosts on MFSN, Casey Scheinvold. He asks, is Blake Griffin a wasted roster space? Which I had him as a bust, but is he a total wasted roster space? And also, he says, I assume Kelly Olynyk is a better own right now. Now, Kelly Olynyk also featured in our graphic for a reason. He's pretty high up the list. I don't have him as a must-have, though, not Kelly Olynyk. I have him as a solid pickup. We can talk more about that.
So
Ross,
let me answer the Blake Griffin. The Blake Griffin, who I'm very familiar with. He's an ex-Clipper. He's making, I think, $40 million this year. He's making a lot of money. He's making tons of money. So
Kirk Cousins financially.
But I feel the player I like on Detroit that's hurt is Joshua Jackson. The coach even said, this is the player I'm going to take underneath my wing. He was the 4th pick in the draft in 2017 at a University of Kansas. And the coach even said, this is the player I'm going to actually make into a great player like I did with Christian Wood last year. So Joshua Jackson, if he's available in your league, I'd rather have him than Blake Griffin right now. That's my opinion.
And does that mean you'd actually cut Griffin for him?
Ross the boss, I probably would. Yes, Blake has not impressed me this year. He's had 3 weeks to impress me. He's not consistent, and I just don't feel he's the same player he was 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think Griffin he's always had some weaknesses in fantasy, but he used to make up for it just with the pure amount of volume that he would get. But now it's not quite working out that way for him anymore. So I really do think he is a droppable player. I actually do think Olynyk could be better than him the rest of the season. It depends on Olynyk's minutes. If he can stay up in the high 20s, I think he'll be a more valuable player than Blake Griffin for the rest of the season. That being said, I never would have drafted Blake Griffin, but if I did, I would desperately try to trade him before I would drop him, because he's one of those players that has that big name recognition, has had some good fantasy seasons in the past, as I said, based on that volume. So just I would try to offer him to every single team in my league and see if somebody bites.
And I was going to say the same thing, which is why often if Andrew comes calling, I'm like, wait a minute. Have you been shopping this guy around? I'm just kidding, Andrew.
I've got a Miles Bridges to sell you, Dan.
Oh, nice. Nice. And I would want to buy that. Yeah, okay, guys, I want to hear from the audience though. Put your comments below, click subscribe and ring the bell for notifications, but also put your comments below. We really want to hear from you. Who are the must-haves that we're missing? Now, meanwhile, we have some very, very exciting news. We are now sponsored by Killcliff, and we're going to hear from them now.
From Killcliff, the #1 clean energy drink in the mind of Joe Rogan, comes the Flamin' Joe. Sugar-free, B vitamins, electrolytes, all them good drink things. An epic spicy pineapple fusion from out of this world, straight into your drink hole. Own it. Killcliff.com.
Doesn't that look delicious?
Oh, yeah.
And listen, when anything's presented by a guy who's pretending to be Barry White, you're going to like it. I mean, Barry White could sell you anything. Fake Barry White can sell you something.
Or a gal that's pretending to be Betty White. Either one works.
That's true. Although that didn't sound like Betty White to me. Now let's finish up. Let's finish up on the must-haves. You just mentioned Miles Bridges. He's still only 54% owned. I think this guy should be universally owned because he does things across the board. So I had him in my must-haves list, at the top of my must-haves list last time, which made Andrew outbid me. Can't believe you did that to me.
Let's talk trade, Dan. I still think you're higher on him than I am. So I think we should talk trade after the show, see if we can get something done. I'd like to pick up some sort of guard, so maybe we can make something happen there.
We should talk trade during the show. We'll see. If we have extra time, we're going to do that. Okay, I have one more must-have. Robert Williams, I think, has arrived as a must-have. He's getting, about 20 minutes a game. If that number goes up, he's going to be even more of a must-have. So I think this is last call on this guy. But the thing is, he does everything. He's blocking shots. He's getting rebounds. This is a guy that could be a juggernaut, but his floor is also really safe. These are the must-haves in my mind. They're the players that have huge upside, but also have a really, really nice floor. Now, guys, before I toss it to you, we're getting a question from Tim Jones. I'm in a 12-man league, and the pickings are slim. I need help with boards. Rudy Gobert is a stud, but he kills me on free throw percentage. Any help? All right, who do we have for Tim that are big-time rebound guys? Andrew, help us out here.
Well, I think the guy you just mentioned, Robert Williams, would be a good choice. And so would Kelly Olynyk, actually. They both can help you out quite a bit in rebounds. So those would probably be the first two options that I would look for if you need help in rebounds. As far as Williams goes, I was mentioning him last week. I love him from a per minute basis. Incredibly efficient player. Really just made his game is made for fantasy basketball. The problem is the minutes. And you said he's getting 20 minutes a night. I think 20 is kind of on the high end of what he's getting. He's often down at 15 or 17 minutes a night. He's still providing, that top 80 kind of value, even with the limited minutes. Whether he can keep that up, I don't know. I think he's a must stash player in leagues where you can just stash guys on your bench for upside, like weekly lineup leagues. In daily lineup leagues, he's a little more hit or miss. You don't know exactly what you're going to get. For me, he was like right on that cusp of a must-have between that and the middle tier. One other guy I just wanted to bring up too, though, and this is a guy that I just had to put on my list based on yesterday's news, and that is Cole Anthony with the Orlando Magic, because Markelle Fultz unfortunately tore his ACL and is out for the entire season. So they now need a new starting point guard, and Cole Anthony is the guy that's going to get that job. He's a rookie out of North Carolina. I don't know exactly how his game will translate for fantasy. I worry a little bit about his field goal percentage being a real albatross, and maybe he struggles with turnovers as a rookie point guard. But he's going to get big minutes. He's going to be helpful in assists. I think he can get some rebounds, score low double digit points. Starting point guards in the NBA don't grow on trees in fantasy leagues. So he's a guy that I would get on my roster and then just see what kind of numbers he can give you.
I think we can all agree that fantasy basketball point guards don't grow on trees anywhere. No. Ross, okay, listen, we just got the question from Tim about rebounds. That's a helpful pickup for assists and point guards. And we, of course, want to go in that direction as well, because there are plenty of people who need that. I did want to mention one other guy who could help with rebounds, though, just to finish up on Tim's question. I think Maxi Kleber can be a helpful guy to add. I have him as a solid pickup. You guys know that I've been all over him from the start. Lauren outbid me for him, and then she cut him. That wasn't a very ninja-like move unless she knows something I don't, which ninjas tend to. So who knows? But this is a guy who gets rebounds, but he also hits threes, and he was blocking shots last year, not so far this year. So it's unclear to me just how good his value will be. Yes.
I got another rebound guy. I got another rebound guy for you. He's not in my must-haves. He's in my middle tier, but Bobby Portis with the Bucks. The Bucks have been blowing everybody out off the court lately, just winning by 20, 30 points. And that means that the backups are getting more runs. So Bobby Portis has actually been getting almost as many minutes, or maybe even more minutes than Brook Lopez has been getting a lot of nights. And he's been delivering in fantasy based on that. And he's been putting up double-digit rebound numbers along with, double-digit points. He's kind of a walking double-double whenever he gets at least, 25 minutes or so. So we'll have to see where the playing time goes with him, but he's a guy that is going to be available in most leagues, and I think he can help you out a lot in rebounds.
Ross, where do you have Bobby Portis? I have him as a deeper league ad, but I did have him on my list, so I agree with you.
Yeah, he doesn't get the minutes that I would want him on my team. He's a good rebounder, kind of one-dimensional, but still, it's not. If you need rebounds, there's better guys out there. I mentioned DeMarcus Cousins. If he needs rebounds, this is the guy you should pick up. He's going to get more minutes. This guy was an all-star 3 years ago. I mean, he had some injury-prone, but a new team, new light, wants to prove himself. I feel if you want a rebounder, a shot blocker, a bruiser, DeMarcus Cousins could help Tim Jones. Tim Jones, listen to Ross the Boss. That's the pickup you should do. Don't listen to these other guys. They have no idea what they're doing. I'm Ross the Boss.
Yeah, he always tries to throw everybody off the scent of us. Which is funny because we're supposed to be recommending all of us, Ross. We're all good here. Don't you know this? No, he doesn't know that. All right, fine. Do we have anybody else in the must-haves category?
I have one more for you, Dr. Dan. I mentioned him yesterday. I mentioned him last week, and he's just getting more minutes. This week he got more minutes. The coach loves him. He comes off the benches. Jordan Clarkson of Utah. Jordan Clarkson is a player that's averaging over 15 points a game. He gets rebounds. He gets steals. He's a steal guy. And if you need a shooting guard / point guard, he could be your guy. I do like him a lot. I think his stock will go up every week that he plays. I feel Utah loves this kid. He's getting the minutes, and he's a great role player. Pick up Jordan Clarkson.
Okay,
Since
so
Ross
now
disagreed
listen.
with me. I let me disagree on Jordan Clarkson. How about I don't, he's a mid-tier pickup for me, but the thing about Jordan Clarkson is he's never been a good fantasy player before this season. And the reason that he's a good fantasy player right now is because he's shooting 49% from the field and well over 90% from the line. And those are not in line with his career numbers. So
He's
I think
practicing.
I think he's a classic hot start kind of a thing where it's not going to keep up and his value is going to go down. He's actually, to me, a poor man's Eric Gordon. So give me the choice and I will take Eric Gordon, who's also shooting his mind out right now, but is a better track record as a fantasy asset and, still got 33 minutes last night, even with Harden active. So I think Gordon, they're both primarily points specialists. But I think Gordon can give you a little more production in the defensive stats, a little more in the rebounds and assists than Clarkson can. So he would be my preferred choice of that type of player.
I'm going to go a step even further. I'm with Andrew on this even more, though. I have Jordan Clarkson listed as under my not buying him. He's in the George Hill category for me.
Okay, so next week or the week after, when you bring his name up, I'll say, hey, weren't you the guy that says that you're not buying him and you don't want him on your list? So just so you know, Ross the Boss, I take notice to everything. Everything goes through this head and gets marked down. I'll make that check right now, and you'll be eating your words in a couple weeks. And I'll say, Dan, what are you talking about? You hated Jordan Clarkson. You said it wasn't a good pickup. Why all of a sudden do you change your mind? And you'll have to have a reason why. You have to tell me why you changed your mind. So you said it now.
Listen, I'm happy to commit to my words. If there's one thing that I can't stand, it's a hypocrite. So if Jordan Clarkson continues to be a value and I was wrong, I will freely admit it. Just like I did with Le'Veon Bell in football when I said you should cut him. He's never going to be a value. And you know what? He never really was even a value. But in the championship week, he looked really good, and that would have been my fault. I can own my mistakes, and I will. But Jordan Clarkson has historically just not been that good of a fantasy player for a long time. And he does this. He goes through hot streaks. So I see him as a short-term pickup just like Andrew, but I value him even less because of it. And if he's a poor man's Eric Gordon is a poor man's something else. So we're getting into, exponentially poor man's
Okay,
territory.
next subject.
Eric Gordon has been really good so far. He's a top 30 player in 9 category formats so far on a per game
Okay, now
basis.
wait. And I will say this, Eric Gordon, even though I'm not super into him, I have him as a deeper league pickup, and here's why. Because James Harden is going to get dealt, and Eric Gordon's going to have a lot of minutes. He also is a really talented guy. Anyway, Clarkson is talented, but he just doesn't have the track record.
Well,
Okay,
keep
guys,
in mind, Ross, Dan and I are Cavaliers fans, so we watched more Jordan Clarkson back in the day than we would care to admit.
He was a Laker too. He was drafted by the Lakers.
I've seen him play so poorly on the court. He, I can't count the number of times where I was like, he is the one guy on the court that I least want on.
Okay, let's move on. I don't want to talk about him anymore. But let's move on.
No, he's Mason Plumlee now.
Exactly. This is a Mason Plumlee. This is now like a term that
let's move on. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Ross, we're going to talk about Mason Plumlee now. No, I'm kidding. He's like 70% owned now. First of all, I want to say again, if you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and put your comments below. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what Ross has gotten wrong, what I've gotten right. What Andrew was not quite as right about as I was. I'm just kidding. This sounds ridiculous. I sound like an egomaniac. Okay. Speaking of being an egomaniac and thinking that I do think right about things. Justin Holiday, I've been talking him up for a while. I didn't have him as a must-have. I don't think he can rise to that level. He just doesn't have what it takes in terms of what he does in fantasy. But what he does do in fantasy is a very solid pickup. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this. Andrew, you and I don't tend to agree on category specialists, but I like having at least 2, if not 3 category specialists. And I'll tell you why. If I make the playoffs and I need to win 5-4, I want to have those levers. I want to be able to say, okay, this is the category I need. Once you're in the playoffs and you're in a given week, you won't be able to pick up other players. So a guy like Justin Holiday, I like having around primarily for the steals. Now, he does do other things, and he's also getting big minutes at the moment. That could change because TJ Warren's going to come back. So the minutes aren't going to stay there. I don't have him as a must-have, but I do think he's big. How have you guys come to feel about Justin Holiday? And then we've got a question coming in after this.
So, yeah, I mean, I addressed a question about Holiday on the Q&A I did the other night. And yeah, I pretty much said what you think. I do think it's sort of a philosophical difference maybe between you and me in terms of the type of players that we target. Right now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the best overall players. I don't care which categories they contribute in. I just want the best overall players. I'm aiming right now to win in the playoffs 9-0, 8-1, 7-2. I want to run people off the court the way the Bucks are running opponents off the court. That's what I'm trying to do. And especially with a category like steals, I mean, that's an undervalued category generally in fantasy. So there will be steal specialists available on the waiver wire later in the season. If I decide I want to, if I decide I'm clearly stronger in certain categories than others and want to reshift my resources a little bit, I think that that's something I'll be able to do later. But right now I'm just trying to, I feel like early in the season is when you can find the best all-around players off the waiver wire. So that's my priority right now, my focus. So I look at him more as his overall package. And to me, that's like a fringe top 100, maybe top 120 kind of player. I do think his value improves a little bit with the TJ Warren injury because he's getting like 2 or 3 more minutes a night, which is going to boost his value a little bit. So that makes him more, that's why I have him in my mid-range pickups, but I'm not head over heels for him.
All right. We have a question coming in from Jonathan Feuerstein. Tristan Thompson he's actually starting and he's a 10-10 guy. That means 10 points, 10 rebounds, clear double-double guy. Where do you guys have him on your pickup list? Is he somebody on your radar? Ross, let's start with you.
Well, anybody who was with a Kardashian to me is good in my book. I mean, if he could be together with a Kardashian for that long and even have a child with a Kardashian, it's a big plus in my book. So that being said, I mean, Tristan's solid. He's not going to win you the league. He's a good role player. Again, I don't know if I would want him on my team. I have a lot of rebounders. I'm good in that category. But Tristan's fine. He's not going to change your league or anything. He's not going to do any huge damage. I think there's players that are in the waiver wire that are probably better bets. But having Tristan on your team's fine. It's a very average type player to have.
Yeah, he's not even in my deep ads. He's off the radar for me.
Yeah.
I'm
no, and I do
want
to say something. When I look for category specialists, I don't look for rebound specialists. Everybody should be getting rebounds. That's not a category specialist. When I'm talking category specialists, I'm talking steals, I'm talking blocks and threes. Those are the specialist categories. I don't want a guy like, I think of Tristan Thompson essentially as a rebound specialist.
He's less
not gonna do
valuable
enough
than
of
both of
anything
the
else.
other front court guys in Boston, I think.
Yep, no.
I would definitely take Robert Williams ahead of him, but I would take Daniel Tice ahead of him too because of the blocks, even though Tice is kind of
you're
been a
100%
little
right.
disappointing.
I mean, again, maybe even below average. So there you go.
Yeah.
I agree. I think he's almost unownable.
But he is together with the Kardashian. You know, it's a good person for that reason. Maybe you take him.
Yeah, if you're playing in a Kardashian categories league, he's like one of the first round picks.
Yeah, one of the first rounder. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, he's way up there. Okay, now interestingly, we're getting a question about Eric Gordon. We already kind of covered it, but we'll circle back to it. We also did have a question before about Nicholas Batum. So let's answer questions about these two guys. Is Nicholas Batum worth a pickup? Where do we have him on our list?
Let
And
me
what
answer
do we- what do we think
Nicholas
of
real
Eric Gordon?
quick. I was watching a Clipper game last night, and I'm a big Clipper guy. They were playing in Golden State. Nicholas, in the last 3 minutes of the game, he had 2 threes in a row, like just popped them from outside. I mean, this guy's making a big difference right now. I think he was with Charlotte last year. I can't remember what team. I think Charlotte, one of those teams that I don't remember.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. He's making a big resurgence of himself. He's been in the league for 12 years. He's French, if that means anything to you, Andrew. But that all being said, he's getting a lot of minutes. He's playing 30 minutes a game. I like Nicholas a lot. He's on my list to keep an eye out for. If you need a good 3-point shooter, he could be your guy. He's playing the minutes and he loves to play. He's not going to sit out like some players on that team do, but I like him a lot.
Well, Ross, I do like that he's French. I love one of my favorite things about the NBA is how international it is. I think that's a great thing that the NBA has going for it over the NFL and even over baseball. And I have loved Nicholas Batum in the past as a fantasy player, but for me, he's just a deep league ad. And the main reason, there's 2 reasons for that. One is that we just found out that Kawhi Leonard is now going to be playing in back-to-back games, which is a huge thing for Kawhi Leonard's value. But it's also a negative for guys like Batum, who are going to get less usage. They're not going to have those nights where they get the extended run and they get to handle the ball more. It's just not going to happen for him. And the other thing is the schedule. The Clippers play 3 games the next 2 weeks, both. So he's just not playing a lot of games coming up. And to me, he's not an impactful enough fantasy player at this stage of his career that I want him on my roster when he doesn't have a favorable schedule. So for me, he's not a priority at the moment. Maybe that will change in a couple weeks.
No, he's a guy, Andrew, just to make sure, he's a guy that will keep an eye on. I'm not saying to pick him up. So not right now, but what I saw last night, I mean, he's a big part of the offense when he's on the floor. But again, I like him because he's a Clipper too. So you guys,
when he does give that sneaky value where he gives you a little bit of production, like across the board. And those kind of players to me are usually underrated and underappreciated. So I see what you're saying.
A very Justin Holiday kind of.
What's the other
kind of
question,
player.
Dan, about Eric Gordon?
Well, we got another question coming in from Lauren Auerbach.
Oh, I like
Is
her.
Austin Rivers worth a flyer? Only if the flyer is fairly worthless, as far as I'm concerned. Now, here's the reason I say that. Nothing against Austin Rivers. I like him as a real life player. He's a great team member, it seems. But he's a glorified Jordan Clarkson. I mean, Austin Rivers is going to have explosive days, and then his value is going to crater. So if you want to pick up Austin Rivers for a week and see if you can catch a hot streak, that's great. Or if you need threes and maybe some steals on that given week, fine. But don't buy into him long term. Andrew, do you agree with me on that?
100% agree. He just doesn't have a track record as a valuable fantasy player. I do think the Knicks, they're really in flux right now. They've had some injuries. You guys know I love Alec Burks, and by the way, he is still pretty high on my list for this week, even though he's out for the next 7 to 10 days.
He has a boot on his leg right now as we speak.
Exactly. But if you, the only leagues I would consider, I have him in our league that we're in together, and I'm not going to drop him. The only league I would consider dropping Alec Burks in is in those leagues where you don't have an IR spot and where you need where you need to set daily lineups, and it becomes a more cumulative game. If both of those things are true, then maybe you have to let him go. But I still think Alec Burks is far, far superior fantasy option to Austin Rivers. So really with Rivers, you're just, like Dan said, maybe you get a week more of hot production, but the guy, even if he got the minutes all season, eventually he's going to revert back to the type of player he's always been.
Let me answer the question in one sentence. Are you ready? He's available in 99% of the leagues. Enough said.
Yep. I think what Ross is hinting at is there's a reason for that. But I also wanted to say, Alec Burks sounds like he should be an English butler. I know he's not, but Alec Burks, let's add him. He would be a great addition to the English league. As
serve you a
Alec
championship
Burks, to me,
on a silver platter.
See, now Jordan Clarkson is a glorified Alec Burks.
Stop comparing Jordan Clarkson with every player that comes up. Jordan Clarkson is his own individual. He's good
like
player.
the village
He's
bicycle.
solid. He's not going to win you the league, but he's going to do a lot of stuff for your team. Keep going.
Jordan Clarkson is the new Mason Plumlee. He irritates Ross because we keep talking about him. All right, guys, I have another couple solid pickups. I think there's two that I haven't seen mentioned. One is, I don't even know if I'm saying his name right. Kevin Huerter. Kevin Huerter. How do you say his name?
I'm close.
Herter, I believe.
Herter.
Yes.
For Atlanta, right?
Well, he won't hurt you, but he will hurt your opponents. And I'll tell you why. Kevin Huerter is also similar to Justin Holiday. Not quite as dynamic. He's an even less sexy version of Justin Holiday, but I think he's very worth owning. Now, I'm not saying fill your roster with these guys, but have one of them. At least one, maybe even two. And then you can turn over the back end of your roster for guys like Austin Rivers if you want to catch a hot streak, which I would still never do.
Well, I'm going to let you
guys,
have
is
him,
he on
Dan.
your list?
No. Well, he's on my deep. I have him. I actually went 18 deep, and I have him 17th, one ahead of Austin Rivers. But no, I just think that he's been getting more minutes lately because Bogdanovich has been hurt, or he had a small injury and missed the fourth quarter of a game, and then played limited minutes the next game. So Herter got up around 30 minutes, 2 games in a row, but that's not going to happen very often for him. And that, I've talked all season about the Atlanta mess of a roster and how that's going to hurt the fantasy value of a bunch of different players. And I think Herter is pretty far down the list in the depth chart on that team. So I think his minutes are going to drop down back to like 20 maybe. And even if he played 30 minutes a night, I think he's still like a fringe top 100 guy in terms of overall value. So not for me.
Right,
really.
but
I agree with Andrew 100%. I think Cam Reddish is a better pickup than Cam Reddish. I'd rather have on my team.
DeAndre Hunter is the one I'm excited about. He's looking really great, and he is more than 60% rostered. But
he has more upside.
Reddish.
But let me say this: if you got a guy who consistently finishes in the top 100, it's math. If you've got a 12-team league, that's a useful guy. If you're in the top one, if you're in the top,
but Herter doesn't do
144, huh?
Herter doesn't consistently finish in the top 100.
No,
though.
he doesn't even come close. It's a horrible
He
pickup.
did last year.
Don't take him. It's horrible. Somebody that I'd rather have than Kevin is Rudy Gay of San Antonio. Rudy Gay's been getting a lot of minutes the past 2 weeks. He's been averaging over 13 points a game. He's getting rebounds. I watched him play against the Lakers and the Clippers. He always has steals. He has blocks. I know he's an older guy. He's a veteran, but he's out there. He's getting 30 minutes a game. It's not a bad pickup if you need like an all-around player right now. And if you're in deep league, I like Rudy Gay. He's available in a lot of leads.
Yeah, I mean, I put a claim in for him last week, and I had some other guys higher up the list, but I agree. Anytime he's got a favorable schedule, he's a player I'm more than happy to stream.
I'm totally with you on Rudy Gay. What I don't understand is why you think Kevin Huerter is worthless and Rudy Gay is good, because Kevin Huerter is like Rudy Gay, except his value isn't likely to evaporate by injury.
Well, Rudy Gay had a number of fantasy seasons where he was really, really good. So, I mean, I think he can show that form in stretches, basically.
Again, he plays for the Spurs. You got to be aware of the Spurs because Popovich loves to screw around with the playing time of certain players. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
in that
Dan,
game.
I'm not even really disagreeing with you. Neither of them, to me, are players that I'm likely to pick up.
No. I'm not going to win the league.
A couple guys I have higher on the list. If you want me to just run through a few more.
Yeah, go.
I know Dan besmirched George Hill again, but I still like George Hill a lot as a pickup.
And George Hill, just so you know,
well.
George Hill was the number 1 3-point shooter last year in the NBA.
Mm-hmm. And he keeps playing well. And then Tyus Jones with the Grizzlies. Ja Morant is out for a month, and Tyus Jones is another. He's kind of like Cole Anthony. He's another one of these guys thrust into a starting point guard job. So he's going to be getting those assists. He's going to get low double-digit points. He's not elite or anything like that, but I think he's a guy that can provide that top 100 value for the next month. So that's worth picking up. I mentioned Bobby Portis. This one's a little deeper, but Gorgie Dang also with Memphis. He has been playing in the 20s in minutes, and he's another one of these big men that's like very valuable on a per minute basis. Throughout his whole career, he has been. So really, it's just a question of getting the minutes. And lately, he's been getting in that 20 to 25 minute range. If he keeps getting that, he's going to be useful.
Hold that thought, because we've got another question coming in. Matt Kleinman is asking, I need help in the steals category. Who should I pick up that could be available in a 10-team league? Justin Holiday, pick him up right now.
No, you know who else is available that's averaged 2.7 steals a game? That's available in like 80% of the league is Derek Jones. There's Derek Jones Jr. of Portland. I know he doesn't really help you in that many categories, but in steals, this guy's a thief. If you need steals, pick up Derek Jones Jr. Another guy I like a lot. He plays for the Celtics. He's a backup, but he plays a lot of minutes. Is Jeff Teague. Jeff Teague is another guy that gets a lot of steals. He'll throw some points up once in a while, but if you need steals, Matt Kleinman, and Ross the boss is telling you to pick him up, you pick him up. Derek Jones Jr. That's my take.
Oh, we have another question from Matt Kleinman again. He's firing them away. I was offered Steph Curry and Zion Williamson for James Harden and Zach LaVine. Thoughts? Stay away from Zion. I'm going to say that right away. He's a glorified Tristan Thompson when it comes to fantasy basketball. Very talented guy on the court, but keep James Harden and Zach LaVine for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I might actually consider taking Steph over Harden at this point, but the LaVine versus Zion part of it just kills the deal for me.
Right. Man, I could see trading Harden for Curry for a number of reasons. I could have seen drafting Curry over Harden anyway. It was pretty close, but you put in Zach LaVine and Zion Williamson, and to me, it's a no-brainer.
I don't know. That's a great offer. I don't know. That'd be great if somebody actually did that. That'd be great if you accepted that trade.
It's a very smart offer. Okay, I want to hear again from the audience about, what are some trade offers you've gotten that you were kind of on the fence about? It sounded like in that case, Matt was on the fence about it. I'd like to help people steer clear of a guy like Zion Williamson, who's so tantalizing in his talent, but just doesn't have the fantasy skills. You really want to look at the numbers.
It also depends what your format of your league is, because if you're in a points league instead of a categories league, Zion Williamson is much more valuable in that format. If that's the case, then I'd have to look at the numbers a little more closely. It might get to the point where you could consider it. I still probably wouldn't do it, but if in a points league, it's a much more serious offer in my mind.
Okay, but they were after James Harden. I'm the James Harden owner in our league. You guys haven't made me an offer yet. Ross, you've talked about it. But I'm curious, who would you offer if you were trying to get James Harden for me?
Would I? I would offer you Durant in an offer. I'll put Durant in the offer for sure. I would probably put Drummond in an offer for. I don't know. We'll have to talk. I don't know your weaknesses. I got to see your team again.
Rebounding is one of my weaknesses, and you supposedly have a lot of rebounds. And
I figure it would be pretty hard to make a trade for Harden with you, because as we discussed previously, we both like the stars and scrub strategy, and so you're not going to trade Harden for a bunch of pieces. You're going to want a star player. So for me, I just realized if I was going to get Harden from you, I'd either need to give you Jokic or Curry, and I don't really feel like I want to do that right now, just because of the questions around
Makes
Harden.
sense.
I just feel like the guys I have are doing great and don't have the same questions.
I've got another question. Someone was asking about who are the intriguing prospects out there. So that could be rookies or maybe second-year guys so we're getting to deep league ads. It's about that time. So who are some guys that are these very talented guys who you think could start to emerge now? Maybe we get ahead of the curve here. Andrew, you got anybody on your radar for that?
I mean, I don't generally like to pay for potential. I like to have proven players on my roster. But at the same time, early in the year, I can see rostering some young guys who could break out. So we talked about Patrick Williams on the show before. I think he's a guy like that you could still be patient with, see if he can get his minutes consistently in the low 30s, and then maybe he has that breakout. We have seen a guy like Halliburton is the best of both worlds because he's got that potential and that upside, but he's also already doing it, so it's less of a risk to get him on your roster. So for me, I generally like when you can have both the best of both worlds on something like that.
Okay, we got another question coming in from Mohammed Saad. This is from a totally new fantasy basketball player, it sounds like. Who do I draft with my pick, my first pick? I'm in a group fantasy with friends, and I don't know anything about basketball. So I don't know if he's saying he's got the first pick in the draft or if it's just his first pick. So Mohammed, it's going to depend on where you're picking in the draft. If you have the number 1 pick, then you're talking about a handful of players. Guys, why don't we start with that? Let's help Mohammed out with this. Let's say he's picking first or maybe second. Who are the players that he should be thinking about? Ross, let's start with you.
I mean, the number 1 pick, I feel, is always, I think Harden is number 1. And then I would pick Jokic of Denver would be number 2 right now, just because he's like leading league in assists, and he's tearing it up in every category. The guy's unbelievable. I love Steph Curry. You can't go wrong. Him as 3. I mean, and then if you need like other players, I'm worried about LeBron's health, but LeBron, I always love in fantasy, but again, he's 36 years old. But you can't go wrong with those 4. And Anthony Davis, I would throw him in that mix too. He'll probably be in the top 5 also somewhere. It just depends where you want him. But those top 5 guys I just mentioned, I don't think you can go wrong if you pick them 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5.
Andrew, how about you? Who did
Ross named my top 4, and he threw LeBron in there, and I don't have LeBron anywhere near those other 4. But for me, those 4 are the 4, because I think Harden and Davis are the 2 proven guys who have been the number 1 or number 2 overall player. They just have this question of how many games they're going to play, and then Jokic and Curry are the ones who. I mean, Curry has always been like in that conversation too, maybe in that like 2 to 5 range, and he does it every single year except last year when he had a fluke injury. But I think he's more certain to play all season to me than Harden and Davis. So that's why I think he's in that conversation. Then, as Ross said, Jokic is just really he was already a top 10 guy anyway, but he's taken a big step forward this year in terms of just running that entire offense through a big man, which is very rare. I mean, he's like Oscar Robertson or something. It's insane. Or Wilt Chamberlain, it's crazy what the guy is doing. So for me, those are the clear top 4.
Who's your 5 then? You take LeBron out. Who's your 5th? Trae Young?
No, definitely not Trae Young.
Booker.
Maybe Karl Anthony Towns when he gets back. I think
he's hurt.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
He's going to be back pretty soon.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, Mohammed updated us. It is the number 1 pick. Listen, if I had the number 1 pick in a snake draft, I'm probably Anthony Davis is very tempting because he just is so dominant. I mean, when you get a guy who blocks things like that and is scoring and rebounding at the level he is, and also hitting threes with high percentages, he's way up there. So I would be considering between probably Anthony Davis and James Harden.
You can't go wrong.
James Harden.
The top 5 we mentioned, you can't go wrong. I even like LeBron,
Mohammed,
but I know
that's the thing. You want to pick a guy that you can't go wrong on. If you don't know what you're doing so much, pick a guy you can't go wrong on.
And the big thing to keep in mind here is drafts are not won or lost in the first round very often. I mean, you're getting a great player there. Where you're going to win your draft is by knowing who to take in the 3rd round, knowing who to take in the 7th round. The later in the draft you get, you're going to be the difference between your player, a knowledgeable player's pick, and someone who doesn't know what they're doing is just going to get huge. Like in the 1st round, everyone's going to get a good player. In the 10th round, maybe only 2 or 3 of the people in the league are going to get a good player. You know what I mean? So that's where you really can distinguish yourself and win your league, I think is knowing where to find value later in the draft.
This is a great point. So I wanted to say for Mohammed, put your comments below. We can start a conversation because we want to tell you who to pick in the 3rd and 4th round. If you really want to have a good chance in fantasy basketball, you're going to need to know who to draft in the mid-range. So click subscribe, ring the bell, put your comments below. We'll keep these discussions going with all of you guys who want to know the answers to things.
And Mohammed, tell all your friends in your league to join, subscribe too. You'll learn every week. We do a show about fantasy basketball. You'll love it. We all love it. It's a great show. You'll learn a lot. It'll help you a lot in your league. And by the end of the season, you'll be a fantasy monster, just like Ross the Boss.
It is really true. You know, I sometimes felt that if we were going to discuss these things, we would give each other too much information. But really what ends up happening is we learn from each other. We learn a ton from each other. And you guys have made me a much better fantasy football manager. You're making me a better fantasy basketball manager already. I love it. We have a question coming in from Jeff Zenisek. Who's an overrated pick to stay away from? This is great because actually we were about to go into just briefly some people that you might want to cut who are over 60% owned. And it's possible that this fits the bill for Jeff's question. But we also want to talk about guys who are, you know, they could even be fringe, but they're just overrated. Zion Williamson is one of those that comes to mind. I had him as a bust the whole way because he just doesn't do enough. Andrew, you're nodding your head. I know you agree with that, but who else?
Well, you know, the guy we always mentioned on this question is Russell Westbrook, right? He's kind of like the poster child for.
I love him, but that's fine. I love Westbrook. I love the guy. I love the triple doubles, but that's me. But I know you don't like him because he's not good in certain categories. I get it.
Yep. In a points league, he's much better, I think.
That's kind of a rule of thumb though, Jeff, is that, you know, the guys who are, first of all, I think there's two kinds of guys who are way overrated. It's guys who have huge hype that have never backed up the numbers, or maybe are rookies. Rookies don't actually tend to do that well in fantasy basketball. Second and third year players tend to do better. Go ahead, Ross.
Well, Jeff, I actually know Jeff. He's one of the best tennis players actually in California. He's unbelievable. Great athlete. He has a podcast. He's very funny. He's great. But that all being said, the one that's the most disappointment this year in fantasy, I would have to say, is Jimmy Butler of Miami. He was legitimately either a first or late second round pick, and he's averaging like 10 points a game. He didn't start out great. You're laughing at me, Andrew, but you know I'm right. If the draft was today, you would not be picking Jimmy Butler.
He missed a few games.
You know I'm right.
They played in the finals. He had like the very short.
He's averaging 10 points a game.
He's
Jeff
can
can
great.
do that.
I would love to buy him low right now.
Well, you should buy him right now because his stock is
if you
way
had him,
down.
I definitely would.
I hate to do this because I'm loving this conversation. I want to talk more about all of this, but we'll continue on. We'll move on to Twitter and keep talking. But guys, any final thoughts before we wrap up for today? Anybody we missed? Anybody you think is fitting with Jeff's question? Overrated? Like Kevin.
I had
Love,
a long
for
list
example.
of drops prepared for you, but maybe we'll have to save that for another day.
We might have to save that for.
I'll give you one. I'll give you one as a little.
In the comments.
I'll give you the most highly rostered one. He's over 90% rostered. He's not a must drop, but I think you could drop Andrew Wiggins.
Wow. Good
yeah.
one.
I mean, he's one of these players that kind of fits what Dan's talking about. He had the hype. He was a very high draft pick. He's a very dynamic player on the court, but he has holes in his game. And I don't think he's going to be a top 100 player in 9 category fantasy leagues. So
I'm getting close. This could be a hot take a little bit. But I'm getting close to that.
Let me give one. Let me give one player that the past 2 weeks he's like in the top 80%. He's been averaging 2 points a game. Andrew, you heard me. 2 points a game. He's in the 80%, and I know he has like 4 rebounds a game and he has like 3 assists a game. But in 2 weeks, he's been averaging 2.5 points a game, and that's Desmond Green of Golden State. His production has gone way down. He's great with pick and rolls, but there's no category for pick and rolls, so that doesn't count. But Desmond Green is somebody, if I had him on my team, he would not be on my team right now. He'd be waived or traded away to Dr. Dan for one of his great players that I'm trying to get. But Desmond Green is one of my guys that you got to get rid of.
Not going to buy that from you, Ross, but we do have to wrap up for today. I wanted to remind everybody out there, this is a weekly live show, our waiver wire. So we'll be here for waiver wire week 4 next Thursday, same time. Click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and put your comments below. We can continue this discussion. We have done this with many people. We finish the show, and then people have questions and questions and questions, and we're very good at answering them. So put them in the comments. Thank you for watching. Tune in next week. Can't wait to give you more great pickups.
Buy any case of Gilcliff the Clean Energy Drink and get a free rocket-powered rocket ship. Go to Gilcliff.com. Offer valid on every planet except Earth. No need to apply for the rocket ship, unless you really want a rocket ship, in which case we might know a guy from South Africa. Rocket ships are so hot right now. They're really fast and cool, but the maintenance is outrageous. Kind of like a boat, but 100 times worse. And we're not even sure if a rocket ship floats. And that doesn't even count the insurance, which is a total racket anyway, and good luck finding a place to park it. Gilcliff, created by Navy SEAL, for people who aren't Navy SEALs. The biggest no-brainer in the history of drinks.
Yeah.